Hmm. Is there any, what's the best event you've commentated on, or maybe some of the more memorable events that you've commentated on yourself? Anything stand out in your mind?
Sure. I mean, the first Poker Million,
Yeah.
excuse me, was was there was nothing like it, and all the Poker Millions, to be fair, maybe with the exception of one or two, but all the Poker Millions were fantastic. The first one was just, it had £1 million first prize because they guaranteed it, but there was just an overlay. There was the second prize was going to be nothing because they didn't get them, and then they put extra money up, and then the second prize was like 100,000, and then
Yeah.
so it was like this, basically this winner take all tournament, the biggest ever. It was held on the Isle of Man, and everybody came. All the big poker players came for this because it was going to be the £1 million first prize, and so we're all locked on the Isle. I mean, the Isle of Man is, you could not. It's like being on. It's like being locked on a ship, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there is nowhere else to go. And so it was this incredible week there. And then the final was the first ever totally live final table for that kind of big money on TV, live on Sky Sports.
Yeah.
Now it was a mess, like that particular one, but the drama and how it actually came about, which was that there was this guy, when they got down close to the final table, and then actually the day before reached the final six. A lot of the players were quite well known and quite proficient. There was Tony Bloom, who was big even back then. He was quite
Yeah, the
big
owner.
style.
Yeah, the owner of Brighton.
He
Brighton.
owns Brighton now,
Yeah,
and one of
yeah,
historically one of the
experience poker player.
bigger gamblers of the time, and he's quite an accomplished poker player. He was part of that lineup, and Ian Dobson, who at the time was quite a well-regarded pro, was in there. Of course, Barney Boatman was there. Teddy Toole, who was a French-Israeli player, who he had his complimenters and detractors, but he was a player.
Yeah.
And then you had this guy John Duthie. Now, thing about John Duthie, he had played a little bit. He was kind of like a little bit known on the English scene, but everyone had I mean, you could not have pegged a guy as straightforward and tight as much as you could bet. You could bank your money that John Duthie was totally straightforward and very tight. I mean, that was how he presented himself.
Yeah.
That was how he played the entire tournament, going up to the final table. And that was how people who knew him a little bit from the scene viewed him. And there was just this, everybody knew that, like, John Duthie was not the guy who could go for it. And you had to, like, at this final table, there was 6 left. First prize was £1 million. Second prize was basically nothing.
Yeah.
ICM was not a thing then,
Yeah.
but it was, or sort of the ideas about people were just tight. So anyway, they come to the final table live on TV. I mean, you have never seen a group of professionals, and I don't say shit themselves, but honestly, I mean, it was nerve wracking. You're live on TV, on Sky Sports, and £1 million, and
£1 million.
I mean, it was. But John Duthie was a madman. I mean, and people were watching live, and you had this green room. You had Amarillo Slim and Mike Sexton and Chris Ferguson, who had just won the World Series of Poker. And I mean, Ken Flayton, every big name in poker from America, from Europe, was there in the green room watching live on TV going, "Go John Duthie!" Oh my God. Because he was like, somebody would raise, and like Duthie would come flying in with this check raise, 6 high, ace high fly, didn't care. And people were just absolutely laying down. He did not get any hands at all at that final table.
Yeah.
And you have never seen a madman performance like this, which he did to win the £1 million. It's still, now these days, it's 20 years later, and people are well clued into the fact that John Duthie is a bit of a madman, and is capable of anything. But when he did it there, like the feeling that everybody, there was, the poker players were like little kids. I mean, these professionals, to see this live on TV, and there was betting, and I mean, it was a scene, you know. And then so the commentating was, like you say, you know, memorable commentary. But I mean, like I'm a spectator like anyone else, you know. I just had the best seat, right? I had the best seat. Although we were in a broom closet and the camera work was terrible, we missed half the hands. But otherwise, the best seat. And then the great thing about that Poker Million, it was always the final was always live on TV. Is that and I worked for many years with Matchroom, Barry Hearn, the great you know understanding of how to film and produce sport, right?
Yeah.
But the Sky Sports, when you went live on Sky Sports, they brought in the same director and crew who worked rugby, the Twickenham, you know, rugby.
Yeah.
So, you know, these guys were used to filming. And so you had 60 people and all kinds of, it was the absolute full production for poker. And that was so, I'm sure that's kind of what, you know, ESPN got up to. Although, to be fair, like, you know, they never got off their half-hour delay and that kind of stuff. And honestly, not the same. I mean, when you do it live and it's live sport, it is like, I'm sorry, you know, it's just.
Yeah. I think that's one of the one of the areas the poker world hasn't quite gotten right yet.
Totally agree. Totally agree, and that's why I'm like, be really critical, because I think there's ways to improve it. But you know, for me, you know, the way the world is today, a half-hour delay, I mean, it may as well have happened a year ago. I mean, it's just pre-recorded as far as I'm concerned. It's not sport.
Is there anything in particular you think they could implement today to improve it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm you know, I'm a big fan, and nobody else seems to like this idea, but I think they should do what I would call like perfect information poker, which would be that at the end of every hand, the cards are exposed to the players, all the players at the table, and the audience at the same time, everybody's whole cards. And what that would keep it quite real. If you watch like the World Series of poker, which is on a half-hour delay, you watch the main event final table. Every hand, the players are dashing off the table to talk to their friends to find out what happened a half hour ago. So if they lost to a big bluff, a half hour later they'll find that out. But like with this, you get the reaction immediately. If a guy bluffs, as soon as the hand is over, there's that interaction at the table. And also as a viewer, you'll be watching that kind of stuff live. For me, it's the way to go. But you know,
I think the game itself it's just another thing poker players can adjust to, you know, as you said, with the live streams and the delay and all that kind of stuff. It just changes once it's fair and everyone has the same information. It just changes what the tactics or the strategy might be, but no one's better or worse off. How much did your life change during the poker boom? You were talking about, you know, poker now live on Sky Sports. It's a far cry from the kind of, you know, what poker was like in the 80s or 90s. How much did it change for you personally during that whole poker boom period?